This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Dream Scenario is a new movie starring Nicolas Cage about a guy who becomes a literal overnight celebrity when he shows up in everyone's dreams. When I read this premise when browsing what to watch at TIFF, it immediately shot up to the top of my most anticipated list because that obviously sounds incredible. And so often movies themselves don't live up to their premises. They either don't do the premise justice or they get lost in other ideas and never pull off what they set themselves up for. Dream Scenario, I'm thrilled to say, is a rare exception. It is one of the weirdest and most delightful movies of the year, and there's also so much to say about it. Delightful feels both like the wrong way to describe this movie and also the only way I can describe it. Because for as hilarious as this is, one bit specifically being the hardest thing I've laughed at in a theater all year, it's also weirdly disturbing and kind of tragic. So basically, it's like my favorite kind of movie, and I have a lot to say about it. Firstly, this is one of the best uses of Nick Cage I've seen in a very long time. I've loved seeing Nick Cage get so much work over the last few years. Seeing him use his extreme style of acting in Mandy was beautiful. His more subtle side in Pig was moving. But obviously he is a very funny actor, and in my opinion, people in recent years at least just haven't seemed to know what to do with it until now. A lot of the time I can't even tell if he's in on the joke in this film. His performance is so strange and awkward, yet it's so committed, unsurprisingly, that I can't tell how seriously he's taking this. What's meant to be a joke and what is his own weird interpretation, I don't know. Either way, it's up there with Mandy as being one of my favorite Nick Cage performances, in that there is no other actor who could do what he's doing here in the way that he does it. It's truly one of a kind. The rest of the cast is also pretty great. Julianne Nicholson plays the part of Paul's concerned wife perfectly. She brings a grounded aspect that something like this needs. Dylan Jalula delivers a weird and low-key performance that complements Cage perfectly. And Michael Cera is so perfectly casted. Whoever was in charge of casting him just understands that the funniest type of Michael Cera performance is when he's playing someone on the opposite side of the spectrum from his personality type. Everyone in the cast is on the same wavelength as the film, which is so crucial to making the absurdity of the story work. So often in modern comedies, filmmakers are compelled to break the illusion to insert a quirky, relatable moment. You know, the, so that just happened moments. But Dream Scenario is so consistently bizarre, which gives it the freedom to be strange and unrealistic when it wants to be, and that's what a good comedy should be. This consistency applies to the actual filmmaking too. For the film to pull off its premise, you would think that that would mean playing things pretty safe, which could not be further from the truth. There are a handful of witty choices scattered throughout, playing with sound design, distorting certain shots, frenetic editing. There's a dreamy quality about the filmmaking that gives it an unpredictable feel. There's nothing straightforward about this. But as you saw in the title and thumbnail, or wherever I decided to put this, Dream Scenario couldn't work by just being a surface level comedy about a guy who appears in everyone's dreams. The film does veer into territory that both helps and hurts the film. What is this thing actually about? I guess this is your warning that if you're one of those people who wants to go in blind, feel free to get out of here. I'm gonna talk about the plot a bit, but that said, I'm not gonna spoil anything that isn't already implied in the trailer, so feel free to stick around. As mentioned, Paul Matthews, our protagonist, is a dweeby, forgettable professor who thinks everyone's just forgotten about him and that everyone owes him something. And he becomes an overnight celebrity when he appears in everyone's dreams. Because of this phenomenon, and because it happens to literally everyone in the world, lots of people grow to love Paul. Some people want to fuck Paul. A side note, that sexual aspect of the film is a bit of a stretch, you could say, and it could be and has been argued by some as being a weird male fantasy aspect of the film. But that said, I'm kind of willing to defend it because it's not so much played out as a fantasy once you see the scene, and it also gives us the funniest joke of the year, so I'm ultimately glad it's in the movie. It also plays a crucial part in, well, what I'm about to talk about. As I was saying, these dreams turn into nightmares, and with that comes a wave of hatred and fear towards our friend Paul Matthews, despite none of the things that he did in these nightmares actually happening. The film takes a not so subtle turn into cancel culture territory. There is a read to be made that the film is critiquing the idea of cancel culture in a way, saying so much of the outrage and canceling of Paul was done over things that didn't really happen. And listen, I'm not saying cancel culture shouldn't be critiqued or analyzed at all. That's silly, and like anything, it isn't a black and white topic. What I am saying is that if the film were to stop there and suggest that those accusing are making it up in their heads, that would sound a little weird. No, that's a weird hill to die on. And the film, thank God, does not die on that hill. In fact, it adds a sort of nuance to the topic that I found surprisingly interesting. Without spoiling, Paul does do something in the film that could get him in trouble. And after that thing, the thing he does in real life, not in a dream, people start to have nightmares about him. And in that way, while everyone in society has no idea that he actually did something wrong, they all turn on him, and the rest of the world sees him as a threat and as a bad person, which is so interesting and weird, and in a very strange way funny, which puts the film into this extremely bizarre place where Paul did do a bad thing, but you feel bad for him being attacked for no reason by everyone else. It adds this weird tension that eventually affects his marriage, and it just plays a lot of weird mind games on who knows how much. It's this quality that turns the film from a surreal comedy into a fascinating exploration of cancel culture, for a lack of a better term. It plays around with what it means to be a victim, who is putting you in that position. It isn't saying anything you haven't already seen while scrolling Twitter, but it's saying them in a way that messes with your head and weirdly makes you laugh. For as clever as it is about this topic, it does leave it in a really tough spot to wrap up. It doesn't necessarily make you want to root for Paul or turn against Paul. You're kind of somewhere in the middle, and I don't think the film really knows what to do with that in the end. Rather than trying to tie things up in a bow, the film does feel like it just kind of fizzles out. It abandons this idea of what Paul can do to get out of the situation, and instead tries to make sense of the phenomenon that put him in this place to begin with, which works and gets the job done, sure, but it doesn't entirely stick the landing in my opinion, and it's without a doubt the weakest part of the film. Not to mention the actual final moment the film ends on. It's one of my least favorite cliches in modern filmmaking. If you've seen the film, or if you've seen a handful of A24 movies from the last few years, you know what I'm talking about. It's such a cop-out in my opinion, and at this point makes me feel nothing. You might as well just not do it at all. But that's really the only thing that didn't work for me here. I think besides that, it is just a really interesting movie. Dream Scenario is kind of a surprise in every way. It not only does more than you expect with the concept, but it pulls off being a film about cancel culture that doesn't entirely make you roll your eyes. Truly though, the biggest pro of the whole thing is how funny it is. I feel like I'm underselling how much this made me laugh. In short, I really can't recommend it enough, and I had to make a video about it because goddamn is it a fun movie. So thanks for watching. Go watch Dream Scenario and form your own opinion, and I'll see you in the next one. I want to thank this week's sponsor, Squarespace, the best place to go to build a website and make that idea of yours come to life. They have this thing called Fluid Engine, which is a next-generation website design system that allows you to customize every design detail with reimagined drag-and-drop technology. As an aspiring filmmaker, it's really important that I have a nice place to put my work, and for that reason, I love their video collection feature. The video collection feature allows you to host video content, organize your video library, and showcase your content on beautiful video pages for desktop or mobile, and they make it super easy to use thanks to their asset library. With this asset library, you're able to upload, organize, and access all your files from one central hub and use them across the Squarespace platform. It really is a lifesaver and saves you a lot of time. The best part though is that you can go to squarespace.com to start your free trial, and when you're ready to launch that beautiful website, go to squarespace.com/Karsten to get 10% off of your first purchase.